In Warhammer 3, you can build any army with whatever you want. If you want 19 steam tanks or mammoths or even Dreadquake mortars, you can do just that, with no reason not to aside from balance, whatever that means. Well, back in the days of the tabletop, you were limited not just by how much plastic you could afford, but also by this small thing called the Rulebook of Tabletop Capacities. At least I assume so, I never played. Well, the Tabletop Caps Reborn mod brings those army capacities to Warhammer 3 and not only changes how you build your armies, but applies those same rules to the AI, meaning you're going to see some truly wacky compositions out there on the battlefield. So how does all of this work in game? Let's dive in and find out. Also, thanks to Instant Gaming for sponsoring the video, more on that later. So what exactly are tabletop capacities? Well, in the olden times, before the discovery of fire, the wheel, and RTX 4070s, people used to play Total War Warhammer 3 with actual miniatures of all the units on top of a table, also known as a tabletop. When creating armies to battle against other players, to keep things balanced, capacities were put in place so you can only have a certain number of higher tier units to keep things interesting. See? Multiplayer has been controlling the balance for years, it's not exactly a new problem. This mod is pulling across that system and implementing it into the campaign to totally change how you build your armies. These capacities won't work on a unit-to-unit system where you can have, say, 3 steam tanks and 3 greatswords. Instead, every unit in the game is given an amount of points, and you can only have so many of each kind of points per army. So swordsmen are green or core units that you can have as many as you want, as they're a fairly standard unit that aren't too hard to recruit or maintain. Something like greatswords are blue special units, so you can only have so many of these per army, but still you can fill up about half an army's worth. Then something like the Hellstorm rocket battery is a truly rare purple unit, so you can only have a very small amount of them per army. Within these last 2 colours, units can also cost multiple points, so Reichsguard are 2 blues per unit, and the Lumnak of Heisch is a staggering 3 purples. What this boils down to is building armies has another layer of complexity added onto it, making it so you really have to think a lot more about what you want to use. Normally, I create my endgame composition using the best possible units that I can, and then just use that for every single army. Now, I'm trying to make the most of my points by choosing lords and heroes that synergize with the units that I'm picking. For example, Karl brings a lot of bonuses for both Greatswords and Reichsguard, so I might want to bring a few of those in his army, but stick to Ironsides if I'm playing with a Master Engineer. Speaking of heroes, I found myself using them a lot more per army, since they cost no points and allowed me to bring something more powerful that I can also use to buff my specializations. For example, stacking an army with Ironsides with an Engineer allows him to maximize their damage and refresh their ammo, while someone like Karl runs with the Reichsguard to keep them safe. However, if you want to keep yourself safe from paying too much for games, you should check out Instant Gaming. It's the new year, so why not celebrate with some new games? 2024 was full to the brim with banger releases, and chances are something slipped through the cracks for all of us. I personally have picked up Silent Hill 2 and have been loving it despite the near constant trouser staining terror. You can grab it right now for 43% off. But maybe you're looking for that next big RPG to sink hundreds of hours into, and you might want to grab Metaphor ReFantazio, which you can get for 36% off. Maybe you're instead counting down the days until Final Fantasy VII Rebirth hits PC and you can grab a pre-order for 43% off. I could go on, but the bottom line is this. If you have any game that you want to play, Instant Gaming is the place to get it. Whether we're talking PC or any console, they have you covered with pretty much any game you could ask for at the best prices you can find anywhere. Plus, not only are you supporting the channel by using my link, you can also enter giveaways for anything you'd like store-wide. And lastly, I know that some of these key websites can seem super shady, like walking up to that guy from Resident Evil 4. But Instant Gaming has overwhelmingly positive reviews of over 700,000 and counting, alongside their 24/7 customer service. So if you want some cheap games with peace of mind, then check out Instant Gaming at the link below. One more thanks to Instant Gaming and you for supporting the channel, and now back to the video. These rules are also not just in place for you, but also every single AI army in the game, so not only will you be roaming the map with different armies than usual, so will everyone else. What this results in is most battles being a lot different to vanilla, especially as the game goes on. We've all seen some of the abominations that the AI comes up with when creating an army, but with this mod, it spices things up significantly. Plus, the overall result is less powerful armies for everyone, meaning it more comes down to using your limited capacities wisely to build the strongest composition you can and knowing how to use it in battle. I've had some extremely close fights with this mod enabled, and it makes manual battling a lot more tempting when I'm not just going against a full stack of Elite Chosen with 6 Hell Cannons at the back. Now, I've obviously not had the chance to play every single faction with this mod enabled, but from what I can tell from the comments, some factions are a little bit worse off than others. The Vampire Counts, for example, seem to be a little bit rough with very expensive Corpse Cart, but Vampire accounts have been getting the shaft since Warhammer 1, so it's lore accurate at this point. So it's not perfect for everyone, but if you've been playing the game for over 1,000 hours and want something to spice up your favourite campaign, it drastically changes how you build your armies. The Skaven in particular feel like a very lore accurate faction, as you can now only have a handful of powerful units and have to make the rest up with clan rats and Skaven slaves, which is really how they're supposed to be anyway. It may not be perfect for everyone, but at the very least it forces you to change how you think about building armies and make do with limits and learn how to best use them and what's worth the expense. We all know in the late game money doesn't really matter, and you can normally field as many armies stocked with the most expensive units in the game no problem. With this mod you'll never get to that critical mass and be thinking about it for the full campaign, whether that's 50 or 500 turns. Now to wrap up with some thoughts about the mod. Like I said earlier, this is absolutely a mod best suited for more experienced players. If you feel like you've played a campaign every which way and now find it boring, trying it out with this mod can really change things up. I've played the start of Cal's campaign more times than I can count, and with this, I was a lot more engaged in what I was doing. The decision making that goes into army building totally changes, and I was considering my recruitment a lot more than usual. Is it a perfect system? Absolutely not. There are some factions and units that are just wildly either over or undervalued, but I believe the mod makers are working directly from the tabletop where possible, so balance was always going to be an issue. That said, balance is an issue with the vanilla game, so you can only complain so much. Visually, it does look just like something you would toggle on in-game, and it doesn't seem out of place at all, so if that's something you're looking for, you won't be disappointed. As for how it works with the AI, of course you can still sometimes come against some pretty interesting compositions, but at least now they're on more equal footing instead of just being a weird mix of extremely elite troops that you now have to deal with. It was never going to fix the janky Total War AI, but it does change up exactly what you're battling, so I'm very pleased with that. If you've got hundreds or even thousands of hours in this game, you can pretty much play it on autopilot. This mod changes that, so I highly recommend it to anyone who's feeling bored with the same old armies. But that's everything I have on this Tabletop Caps Reborn mod for Warhammer 3. Let me know your thoughts on the mod in the comments below. Like, subscribe, check out Instant Gaming at the link below, and if you want more Warhammer 3 mod videos, then check out this one, all about the High Elf Phoenix Court mechanic.